space, its people had earned the respect of many alien races due to their incredible resilience and determination. The human race, once isolated and divided, had united under the banner of peace, learning to coexist with each other and the universe around them. However, this peace was fragile. At a remote military outpost, located in a quiet corner of the Earth's border space, a young soldier named Jason stood watch. His duty was simple: protect the border and monitor any incoming ships. The planet had seen several alien species make contact in recent years, but so far these encounters had remained peaceful. But there was a tension in the air, a sense that things were about to change. Jason had been briefed about the arrival of an alien queen, a being of immense power and importance. Her species, a race of humanoid beings with pale blue skin and large glowing eyes, had long been at odds with other factions in the galaxy. There were rumors that the Queen sought asylum on Earth, hoping to avoid a conflict that could ignite a war between her people and others. Jason didn't know what to expect, but he had his orders: keep the peace. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the barren landscape, a ship appeared on the horizon. It wasn't large or heavily armed, but its sleek design suggested it was built for speed and stealth. Jason's heart raced as he saw the vessel land on the dusty ground, its engines humming softly before shutting down. He stood at attention as the hatch of the ship opened, and out stepped the alien queen. Her skin shimmered under the fading light, and her long, flowing silver hair swirled in the gentle breeze. She was tall and elegant, her presence both intimidating and captivating. Despite her regal appearance, there was a vulnerability in her posture, a weariness that suggested she had been running for a long time. Jason hesitated, unsure of what to say or do. He had been trained to handle hostile situations, not to welcome potential enemies. But this was different. This was an alien seeking refuge, not a conqueror. The Queen's voice, soft yet firm, broke the silence. "I am seeking sanctuary, human," she said, her accent melodic but strange. "I wish no harm. I only want peace." Jason blinked, caught off guard by the calmness in her words. She had spoken in perfect English, as if she had known the language for years. But her appearance was otherworldly. Her pale blue skin, the delicate lines of her face, and the ethereal glow in her eyes told him that she was no ordinary visitor. "Sanctuary," Jason repeated, trying to make sense of the situation. "Why here? Why Earth?" The Queen's eyes softened, and she looked away for a moment as if searching for the right words. "My people are at war. We seek peace, but there are forces that wish to destroy us. I come to you in search of safety. Will you help me?" Jason felt a heavy weight settle in his chest. He wasn't sure if he could trust her. How could he? But something about her presence, the sincerity in her voice, made him wonder if perhaps she wasn't the threat the galaxy had made her out to be. "Why should I help you?" he asked, his voice steady despite the uncertainty swirling inside him. "I seek only rest," she answered. "For tonight I ask only for shelter. I mean no harm. I only wish to sleep in peace, away from the dangers that chase me." Jason looked at her, taking in the exhaustion that lined her face. He had been trained to be wary of aliens, especially those of high status, as they often carried hidden agendas. But something about her request felt genuine. He took a deep breath and made a decision. "You can stay the night," he said, his voice firm yet respectful, "but I'll need to contact my superiors first. I can't make this decision alone." The Queen nodded gracefully, acknowledging the soldier's caution. "I understand. I am not here to force you into anything. I only ask for your help, if you are willing." Jason hesitated for a moment before stepping away to send a message to his commanding officer. As he waited for a response, he couldn't help but glance back at the alien Queen. There was something in her eyes, a mixture of fear, hope, and weariness, that made him wonder if she truly was just seeking peace. The message from his superiors came through quickly, and after a few moments of reading, he turned back to the Queen. "You can stay, but only for tonight. We'll figure out what comes next in the morning." The Queen's face softened in gratitude, and for the first time, Jason saw a hint of a smile. "Thank you, human. I promise. I only seek peace." As she entered the small shelter that had been prepared for her, Jason stood outside, his mind racing. He had never imagined that his first real contact with an alien would be under these circumstances, an alien queen, seeking peace, asking for nothing more than a place to rest. But deep inside, Jason knew this was only the beginning of something much bigger. The question was, would this peaceful moment last, or would it ignite a chain of events that no one could control? The night settled over the outpost like a heavy blanket. The stars above twinkled brightly, their cold light casting an eerie glow on the barren landscape. Jason stood outside the small shelter, staring at the sky, his thoughts racing. The Queen's words lingered in his mind. "I seek only rest. For tonight I ask only for shelter." He had been trained for many situations, but nothing in his training prepared him for this. An alien queen asking for sanctuary. There had been talks of peace, of diplomacy with other species, but no one had ever imagined that such an important figure would be alone, in need of help, with no army or weaponry to back her up. Jason glanced back at the shelter. The Queen, whose name he still didn't know, was resting inside, weary from her long journey. Her ship had been damaged and she had barely managed to make it to Earth. She didn't seem like a conqueror, and her plea for safety felt genuine. Yet Jason couldn't shake the feeling that something much bigger was at stake. As he stood there, lost in thought, the small door of the shelter opened. The Queen stepped out, her presence commanding, yet calm. She wore a simple gown, the soft fabric rippling with the breeze, and her pale blue skin glowed faintly in the night. Her large eyes, the color of the ocean on Earth, met his with a look that was both curious and sincere. "I did not mean to intrude," she said softly, her voice like a melodic whisper. "But I must ask you a favor, human." Jason turned to face her. "What do you need?" The Queen hesitated, her gaze drifting to the ground for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter, almost hesitant. "I am tired, human. Tired of running, tired of fighting. For tonight, may I rest beside you? I have been alone for so long, and the fear, it does not leave me. I seek only peace, not war." Jason felt a pang of sympathy. He could see the exhaustion in her eyes, the way her shoulders slumped under, the weight of something much larger than herself. She wasn't asking for anything dangerous, just a place to sleep, a moment of peace. She had no weapons, no guards, just a broken heart and a soul searching for sanctuary. "I'm not sure this is the best place for you to rest," Jason replied, his voice uncertain. "We're still in the middle of a conflict zone. It's not safe here." The Queen's eyes met his with a mixture of understanding and sadness. "I know the risks, but I trust you, human. For tonight, can you allow me this small comfort? I have been through much, and I do not wish to face another night of fear." Jason sighed, his mind racing. He had no way of knowing if her intentions were true. It could all be part of some plan, some grand scheme to manipulate him, to use his trust against him. But deep down he didn't think that was the case. There was no malice in her voice, no hidden agenda. Just a woman, a ruler from another world, seeking refuge. Against his better judgment, Jason nodded. "Okay, you can rest, here. But we keep it low profile. No one can know about this." The Queen smiled, a soft, thankful expression. "Thank you, human. You do not know how much this means to me." She stepped forward slowly, almost hesitantly, and Jason opened the door to the shelter for her. The interior was modest, just a few chairs, a cot in the corner, and basic supplies. But it was enough for her to rest. She lay down on the cot, her long silver hair spilling over the edge like a river of light. Jason watched her for a moment, unsure of what to do next. "I will stay by your side," he said, breaking the silence. "But you must know, my duty is to protect Earth. If anyone finds out about you, it could mean war. I have to be careful, and I need you to be careful too." The Queen's eyes softened as she looked up at him. I understand, human. I do not wish to bring harm to your world. I only wish to live in peace. Jason didn't know why, but something about her words made him believe her. He sat down on a nearby chair, keeping his distance but still close enough to watch over her. The silence between them was comfortable, and for the first time in a long while, Jason felt a strange sense of calm. He wasn't alone anymore. For the rest of the night, they remained in quiet company, with the sounds of the desert wind outside and the occasional crackling of the shelter's small heater filling the space. Jason kept an eye on the Queen, but he couldn't help but feel an odd sense of protectiveness toward her. He had no idea what her true intentions were, but in that moment, it didn't seem to matter. She was a stranger, yet in her vulnerability she had become something more, a person in need of help, someone who was just as human as he was in her own way. As the night wore on, Jason eventually fell asleep in the chair, his body weary from the planet Earth had always been a symbol of peace and hope in the galaxy, despite its relatively small place in the vastness of weight of his decisions. The Queen, however, stayed awake for a long time, staring up at the ceiling, lost in her thoughts. She was alone now, but not entirely. In this human, she had found someone who offered her a rare gift, a chance to rest, to find peace, even if only for one night. The first rays of the sun crept through the small window, casting a gentle light over the shelter. Jason stirred in his chair, slowly waking from a restless sleep. He glanced at the cot where the alien Queen lay. She was still, her pale blue skin glowing faintly in the morning light. Her silver hair spread across the pillow like a soft cascade, a picture of calm after the storm of the night before. Jason rubbed his eyes, his mind racing. The events of the previous day felt surreal. He had never imagined that he would be sharing a shelter with an alien Queen, a ruler from another world. It had all happened so fast, her sudden appearance, her plea for sanctuary, and his decision to trust her. He looked at her now, lying there, vulnerable and at peace, and felt a deep sense of responsibility. He had promised to protect her, but could he really follow through on that promise? What if the others found out? What if his decision put Earth in danger? The Queen stirred, her eyes opening slowly. She blinked a few times, adjusting to the light. When her gaze met Jason's, there was no fear in her eyes, only gratitude and something else, something softer. "Good morning, human," she said, her voice warm and gentle. "Thank you for allowing me to rest. It has been so long since I felt safe." Jason nodded, still unsure of what to say. It's no problem. You needed a place to rest. I don't want to get in trouble for this." The Queen sat up slowly, her long, graceful body moving with a calm fluidity. "I understand your concerns, but I am not here to bring trouble to your world. I only wish for peace, for myself, and for my people." Jason hesitated. "But why Earth? Why us?" The Queen looked out the window, her eyes distant as she seemed to search for an answer. "Because Earth represents something different. Your people have endured so much, yet you've found ways to live in peace. Your strength lies not in your weapons, but in your ability to work together, to understand each other. My people have forgotten that. We have been at war for so long that we have lost sight of what it means to live in harmony." Jason listened, his curiosity growing. He had always believed that humans were no different from any other species in the galaxy. Weak and divided, always fighting for survival. But now he was starting to see things differently. This Queen, this alien from another world, was looking to Earth for guidance, for hope. "Do you think we can help you?" Jason asked, his voice uncertain. The Queen turned to him, her large, expressive eyes filled with emotion. "I hope so, but I cannot ask you to solve all my problems. I only wish to live in peace, even if it is just for a little while." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. The weight of the situation hung in the air between them. Jason knew that helping her might mean trouble. His orders were clear: protect Earth and keep any potential threats under control. But the Queen didn't seem like a threat. In fact, she seemed more human than anything else. "Maybe I can help you," Jason said finally, his voice steady. "But we'll have to be careful. I can't let anyone know you're here. It could cause a panic." The Queen nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. "I will stay hidden as long as it takes. I trust you, human." Jason felt a strange warmth in his chest at her words. Trust. It was something he hadn't expected to feel toward an alien, especially one of such power, but here they were, two beings from different worlds finding common ground in a moment of peace. As the day wore on, Jason and the Queen spent time together in quiet conversation. She shared stories of her people, their struggles, and their long history of conflict. Her species, though powerful and advanced, had been torn apart by endless wars. The Queen herself had been born into a world of strife, raised to be a leader in a time of constant battles. Jason told her stories of Earth, of human history, of how the world had once been divided but had come together through shared struggles. He spoke of the wars that humans had fought, of the loss and the pain, but also of the rebuilding, the healing that had followed. In the shared silence that followed, something unexpected began to form between them. It wasn't love, at least. Not yet, but it was something. An understanding. A bond forged through their willingness to listen to each other, to trust each other. Later that afternoon, Jason took the Queen on a walk around the outpost. They didn't go far, just enough to stretch their legs and get some fresh air. Jason was still cautious, looking around for any signs of trouble, but so far, there had been no sign of enemy ships or anything out of the ordinary. The Queen walked beside him, her presence calming, her long strides matching his. She seemed to move with a grace that was both alien and human, as though she were trying to blend into this strange world she had found herself on. "I wonder," she said softly, "if there will ever be a day when my people will know peace, like yours." Jason glanced at her, feeling a pang of sympathy. "I think everyone deserves peace," he said quietly, "but sometimes it's hard to know where to start." The Queen smiled faintly. "Perhaps it starts with something small, a place to rest, a moment of trust, and then maybe it grows." Jason looked at her and nodded. "Maybe it does." They walked in silence for a while, each lost in their thoughts. The stars above were starting to twinkle again as the sun dipped below the horizon. The peace they had found, though fragile, was something worth holding on to. The days that followed were calm, almost unnervingly so. Jason continued his patrols, keeping an eye out for any threats, though he began to feel an unexpected sense of peace himself. The Queen, who had asked to be called Lysara, was respectful of the rules. She stayed within the shelter, never venturing outside unless Jason was with her. Despite her royalty, her demeanor was humble. There was nothing about her that screamed power, only an undeniable quiet strength that spoke volumes. She had become, in a sense, a companion of sorts, a being from a distant world who had sought sanctuary on Earth and found it, even if only for a short time. Jason had grown to appreciate her company. They had spent many hours talking, learning about each other's worlds, sharing stories of their people, their history, and their hopes for a better future. But as much as he had come to respect her, there was still a part of Jason that remained guarded. He couldn't forget the reason she had come. Her people were in danger, and she was running from a war that threatened everything she held dear. Despite the peace they had found in each other's company, Jason couldn't shake the feeling that things were about to change. One evening, as the stars began to emerge in the sky, Jason sat on the small porch outside the shelter, cleaning his weapon. It was a peaceful night, and the only sounds were the gentle rustling of the wind and the occasional chirp of alien insects in the distance. Lysara stepped out, her presence as quiet as ever. She wore a soft, flowing robe that shimmered faintly in the moonlight. Jason glanced up at her and gave her a brief nod. "Evening, Lysara," he greeted her, his voice calm, though there was a hint of wariness still present in his tone. "Evening, human," she replied, her voice soothing as always. She stepped closer, but not too close, and stood beside him, her eyes scanning the night sky. For a moment, neither of them spoke, simply sharing the silence. Jason took a deep breath, unsure of how to approach the topic that had been weighing on his mind for days now. He knew his time with Lysara would soon come to an end. He was starting to worry about what would happen when the others discovered her presence. Would they see her as a threat? Would they destroy the peace they had worked so hard to maintain? Lysara seemed to sense his unease. She turned to face him, her large eyes searching his face for answers. "You worry about what comes next," she said softly. "I can feel it." Jason sighed, lowering his weapon. "I don't know what's going to happen, Lysara. If anyone finds out about you, they'll panic. They might see you as an enemy. I can't let that happen. I can't put Earth in danger." Lysara's expression softened. She stepped closer, her delicate fingers brushing the edge of his hand in a gentle gesture of reassurance. "I understand your fear, human, but I have already risked so much to find peace. I cannot go back to my people, not yet. They will only see me as weak, a failure. I do not want to be a symbol of destruction for them." Jason's heart went out to her. He had never seen someone so burdened by the weight of their own people's expectations. Lysara was more than a queen. She was a prisoner of her own past, trapped in a role that demanded strength at the cost of her own happiness. "I want to help you," Jason said, his voice low. "I want to do whatever I can to protect you, but I don't know how. I'm not equipped for this. I'm just a soldier." Lysara studied him for a long moment, her eyes glimmering with something that Jason couldn't quite place. She stepped back, her hands clasped in front of her, and let out a soft sigh. "You are more than just a soldier, Jason," she said quietly. "You are a bridge between two worlds, one that seeks peace and one that thrives on conflict. That is why I trust you." Jason looked up at her in surprise. "You trust me?" "Yes," Lysara replied, her voice strong despite the vulnerability she had shown in her words. "I trust you because you have shown me kindness, even when it would have been easier to turn me away. I trust you because you understand that peace is not something that comes easily, but something worth fighting for." Her words hit Jason harder than he expected. He had been so focused on his duty to protect Earth, to keep things under control, that he had forgotten the reason he had joined the military in the first place. He wasn't here just to fight. He was here to protect people, protect peace, protect the future. Lysara took a deep breath and looked at him once more. "There is one more thing I must ask of you," she said, her voice steady but filled with a quiet pleading. Jason's heart skipped a beat. "What is it?" For the first time, Lysara hesitated. She looked down at her feet, then back at him as if weighing her next words carefully. "Tonight, may I rest beside you, human?" Jason blinked in surprise. The request was simple, but the meaning behind it was anything but. It wasn't just a request for physical comfort. It was a plea for connection, for safety, for peace. She was asking him to be her anchor in a world that had always been unpredictable and dangerous. He stared at her for a long moment, seeing the vulnerability in her eyes, the exhaustion she had carried with her from her homeworld. Without thinking, he nodded. "Of course. You can rest here." Lysara's face softened with gratitude, and for the first time since their meeting, she smiled. It was a small smile, but it held a quiet strength that made Jason's heart swell. "Thank you," she whispered. As they entered the shelter together, Jason felt a sense of peace wash over him. The weight of the universe didn't seem as heavy in that moment. For the first time, he realized that sometimes the simplest requests were the ones that changed everything. The evening that followed was filled with an unusual quiet. Jason couldn't remember a time when he had felt such peace, and yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. Lysara had asked to rest beside him, and despite his initial hesitations, he had agreed. Now, as they sat together, the simple silence between them felt like the calm before a storm. Jason sat on the small chair by the corner of the shelter, while Lysara had chosen to sit on the cot. The moonlight filtered through the windows, casting a soft glow across the room. She had insisted that she didn't need anything extravagant, only a small corner to rest. There was a serenity in the way she held herself, the grace of a ruler despite the hardships she had faced. For the first time since he had met her, Jason allowed himself to truly think about what was happening. Lysara was an alien queen, someone who had lived through wars and struggles far beyond anything he could understand. And yet here she was, asking for peace in the simplest of ways, a request for rest, for connection, and for understanding. Lysara's presence was comforting in a way that Jason hadn't expected. She wasn't demanding anything from him, unlike the military leaders he had served under. She wasn't looking for power or control, but for something far more elusive: peace. It was something Jason had taken for granted, something he had always believed was easily within reach, but now he saw it for what it truly was: fragile and rare. "You know, human," Lysara began softly, breaking the silence, "I've seen so much destruction in my lifetime. War has been a part of my world since I was born. But here with you, I feel something different. I feel safe." Jason's heart softened at her words. He looked up at her, surprised by the depth of her vulnerability. "I'm glad you feel that way," he replied quietly. "But I don't know if I can protect you forever. What happens when someone else finds out?" Lysara looked down at her hands, her fingers tracing the soft fabric of the blanket. "I know I cannot stay hidden forever, but for now, this is enough. I don't ask for much, just for a little time to rest and to think." Jason's mind raced. How could he keep this secret? What if the others found out? The military had strict protocols. If they discovered a queen of another species was on Earth, it could lead to a conflict far beyond anything they had experienced. Yet, as he looked at Lysara, he realized that she wasn't a threat. She wasn't here to harm anyone. She was simply a woman who had lived through unimaginable pain and loss, seeking peace in the only place she felt safe. "I want to help you," Jason said, his voice steady despite the uncertainty he felt. "But I need to know more. I need to understand what's happening with your people." Lysara's eyes, which had been distant for a moment, returned to meet his. "My people are torn, human. We were once united, but war has fractured us. My family, my ancestors, they ruled with strength, but now they rule with fear. I was raised to lead, but the peace I seek is one that no longer exists in my world. There is no peace there, Jason. I left because I did not want to be a part of the destruction anymore." Jason leaned forward, feeling a deep sense of sympathy for her. "It sounds like you're trying to break free from something bigger than you. But why Earth? Why did you come here?" Lysara's gaze softened. "I came to Earth because I believed your people could show me a way forward. You've found peace in the most unlikely places. I thought maybe there was something I could learn here." Jason's mind raced as he processed her words. She had come to Earth for answers, for guidance, not as a conqueror, but as a refugee seeking the one thing that had eluded her kind: peace. "I don't know if I can show you the way, Lysara," Jason admitted, his voice filled with uncertainty. "But maybe together we can find it. Maybe your people can learn to live without war." Lysara smiled, the warmth in her eyes making her seem less like a queen and more like a person who had been carrying the weight of the universe on her shoulders. "I would like that. To learn from you, human. To learn what it means to live without fear." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable, but rather filled with understanding. Jason didn't have the answers. He wasn't a diplomat, nor was he a leader. But he had something more powerful than that: a desire to help, to protect, and to offer a future that wasn't defined by conflict. Lysara stood up slowly, her movements graceful and deliberate. "I know I've asked for a lot, but there is one more thing I need to ask of you, Jason." Jason stood up as well, concerned. "What is it?" Lysara's expression grew serious, her gaze never leaving his. "I need you to promise me something. That no matter what happens, you will not let my people destroy themselves. I don't want to go back to that. I don't want to see more suffering. Please, Jason, promise me you will do everything in your power to stop the war. Jason swallowed hard, the weight of her words settling in his chest. He hadn't realized until that moment how much was at stake. This wasn't just about helping an alien queen. This was about preventing a war that could tear entire civilizations apart. I promise, Jason said, his voice firm, filled with a determination he hadn't felt before. I'll do everything I can. Lysara smiled again, and for a moment, she looked less like a queen and more like someone who had found a glimmer of hope after so much darkness. Thank you, she whispered. Jason didn't know what the future held. He didn't know how things would unfold, but one thing was clear. His life and Lysara's had changed forever. And no matter what happened next, he knew he couldn't turn back now. The promise Jason had made to Lysara weighed heavily on him. He had pledged to protect her, but as the days passed, the tension surrounding her presence began to grow. They had kept her hidden in the shelter, far away from the prying eyes of the outside world. But Jason couldn't ignore the reality that the longer Lysara stayed, the closer they came to a breaking point. The quiet peace they had shared over the last few days was fragile. Jason had to be careful. Every movement, every word he spoke felt like it could send everything into chaos. His mind constantly raced, wondering what would happen if someone found out that an alien queen was living on Earth. It was one thing to keep her safe for a short while, but what would happen if her enemies found out? What would he do then? Lysara, on the other hand, seemed to have a calm that Jason couldn't understand. She was not concerned about the outside world or the enemies that might be searching for her. She was focused on one thing: peace. The queen had spent much of her time reflecting on her past, her people's broken history, and what could be done to stop the destruction that had taken hold of her world. Jason could see that she was struggling. She was not a woman seeking to conquer, but one seeking to end a cycle of pain that had lasted too long. One evening, Jason sat outside the shelter, his back against the wall as he kept watch. The sun had just set, leaving behind a golden hue in the sky, and the night was quiet. It was a rare moment of calm, but even in the silence, Jason felt the weight of the unknown. Lysara had been inside, lost in thought, but she stepped outside, walking toward him with an air of quiet confidence. The wind picked up slightly, and her silver hair swirled in the breeze. She looked like a vision of something ancient, something far beyond the world Jason knew. I can feel the tension building, Lysara said softly, sitting down beside him without waiting for an invitation. Her eyes were scanning the horizon, her expression unreadable. There is something coming, something I cannot ignore. Jason frowned, unsure of what she meant. What do you mean? Is it your people? Are they close? Lysara didn't answer immediately. Instead, she stared into the distance, her eyes distant and troubled. No, not yet. But I can sense the shift. I can feel the fear rising among those around you. The ones who watch over this world. They will begin to question why I am here. It is only a matter of time before someone notices that I am missing. Jason's heart skipped a beat. You're right, I've been feeling it too. People are starting to ask questions. We can't keep this secret forever. Lysara nodded, her voice steady despite the growing tension. I never expected to stay hidden forever, but I cannot let my people destroy themselves, Jason. I know you have your duties and I respect that. But I cannot stand by while my world collapses into chaos. Jason turned to her, his gaze firm but filled with doubt. I promised you I would help, but I don't know how to stop this. I'm just one soldier. Lysara met his gaze with a quiet intensity. You are more than just one soldier. You are the key to a future without war. Your people have found peace, even when it seemed impossible. You have the power to lead, to help guide us to something better. Jason felt a surge of responsibility. The weight of Lysara's words was heavy. He had never thought of himself as a leader. He was just following orders, doing what he had been trained to do. But now, things were different. He wasn't just fighting for Earth. He was fighting for something bigger, a chance to prevent a war, to change the future of an entire species. I don't know how to do it, Jason said, his voice quieter now. I don't have the power to make decisions like that. Lysara's eyes softened. You don't have to do it alone, Jason. You have allies, people who are ready to listen, to help. Your world has shown that peace is possible. Even in the most difficult times, if we can work together, we can prevent the war I fear. Jason took a deep breath. It was a lot to process, but Lysara was right. This wasn't just about her. It was about more than that. It was about saving lives, about preventing destruction, about showing that peace was possible. He had to try, even if he wasn't sure how. We'll find a way, Jason said, his voice steady with resolve. But we have to act fast. If we don't, everything could fall apart. Lysara smiled, a small, hopeful smile. I knew I was right to trust you. As they sat together in the fading light, Jason felt something shift within him. The responsibility he had taken on wasn't just about keeping Lysara safe. It was about protecting something far more important, the future. The days were passing quickly, and Jason could feel the pressure building. The longer Lysara stayed hidden, the more difficult it would be to keep her presence a secret. The tension that had settled between them was growing stronger each day. He had made a promise to her, but the weight of that promise was becoming harder to carry. They had been careful. Lysara stayed inside, only leaving the shelter when Jason was with her. He had briefed the other soldiers on the base, warning them that something unusual was happening, but he never mentioned Lysara's presence. He didn't know how long he could keep this up, but for now they were safe. Lysara, however, was not content with simply hiding. She knew that time was running out. The war she feared was still far away, but every day it felt closer. She couldn't stand the thought of her people continuing to destroy each other. She had to find a way to stop it. Jason had become her only ally. She knew that if anyone could help her, it was him. He was not a leader in the traditional sense, but he had the courage to stand up for what was right. She had seen that in him from the moment they had met. And now, as their bond deepened, she felt a hope that she hadn't known in years. One evening, as the sun began to set, Jason found himself standing outside the shelter, staring at the horizon. The sky was painted with shades of pink and orange, and the cool evening air felt refreshing against his skin. He needed a moment to clear his head. Everything was changing so fast. He had to figure out how to keep Lysara safe, how to stop the war she feared, and how to protect the future. He was so lost in thought that he didn't hear Lysara approach until she was standing next to him. You're troubled, Jason, she said softly, her voice a calming presence in the growing darkness. Jason turned to look at her. I don't know how much longer we can keep this hidden, Lysara. If someone finds out, it could cause chaos. I don't know if I'm ready for that. Lysara studied him for a moment, her pale blue eyes filled with understanding. I know. This is difficult for you, but you are the only one who can help me. I can't go back to my people not like this. I can't let them destroy themselves. Jason sighed, running a hand through his hair. I made a promise to you, and I'll keep it. But I can't do this alone. We need help. We need to find a way to stop the war. Lysara nodded. We will find a way. Together. Jason looked at her, his gaze steady. Together. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The quiet of the night surrounded them, and in that silence, Jason realized something. He didn't just want to keep his promise to Lysara. He wanted to help her. He wanted to find peace, not just for her, but for all of them. The world, her world, their world, couldn't survive in endless conflict. There had to be another way. I think I know who can help us, Jason said suddenly. There's a council, a group of leaders from different worlds. They've been trying to promote peace in the galaxy. Maybe they can help us stop the war before it starts. Lysara's eyes lit up with hope. The council. Yes. They are the ones who can help us bring about peace. If we can convince them to act, we can prevent the destruction. Jason nodded. It's a long shot, but it's our best option. He turned to Lysara, his expression serious. We can't stay here much longer. We need to contact the council and let them know what's happening. But we have to move quickly. The longer we wait, the harder it will be. Lysara agreed, her gaze firm. Then we will leave tonight. We will find a way to contact them. Jason knew it wouldn't be easy. There were many risks involved. If the council refused to help, they would have to figure out something else. But for the first time in days, he felt a sense of purpose. He wasn't just protecting Lysara anymore. He was fighting for something bigger, something that could change the future of two worlds. That night, they prepared to leave. Lysara packed a small bag with essentials, her movements quick and efficient. Jason made sure they had everything they needed, checking his equipment one last time. They would travel under the cover of darkness, moving swiftly and quietly to avoid being noticed. Before they left, Jason turned to Lysara. "Are you sure you want to do this? We don't know what will happen once we reach the council." Lysara gave him a small smile, her eyes filled with determination. "I've lived in fear for so long, Jason. I can't keep running. This is the only way to end the cycle of war." Jason nodded, feeling a renewed sense of resolve. "Then let's do it." They left the shelter quietly, their footsteps barely making a sound as they moved through the darkened landscape. Jason led the way, keeping a careful eye on their surroundings. He didn't know what the future held, but for the first time, he felt like he was walking towards something that could bring real change. As they traveled together, Jason realized that his world had changed forever. He wasn't just protecting Lysara anymore. He was protecting the future, a future where peace was possible, where trust could build bridges between two worlds. And in that quiet moment, as they walked toward the unknown, Jason knew that no matter what happened next, he would fight with everything he had to make that future a reality.